It's a chat headset.
Welcome to another episode of the AV Experience. I'm your host, Ryan, joined by Jonathan and Bob. Today we're going to be talking about, mainly about the secret level from Amazon and answering all of your guys' questions. But first, because we weren't here last week because I decided to break my laptop somehow and now have kind of gotten it fixed, and you guys will probably complain about the microphone and the reverb and all this other stuff that's going on. We're back, finally. So how have you guys been? I haven't talked to you in a couple weeks. Well, don't jump out all at once.
Doing great. You know, if you wouldn't have said anything about the reverb,
they'd notice. They'd notice anyway if it was there.
You planted the
funny
seed.
thing is Jonathan can't hear it and Bob can, so who knows?
It could just be me. Maybe I got hit in the head or something. Which is actually true because my daughter shut the garage door on my head as I was walking in today. So maybe it's just all in my head.
Oh boy!
Wow.
Yeah.
How's that even possible? Isn't the safety thing supposed to make it go back up?
Like I was walking in, and as soon as I was walking through the threshold, she pushed the button, and because when you're almost as tall as the garage, I got hit like right here.
Did it knock you down?
No, but it's close.
I don't think many people are going to have that on their bingo card of getting hit by a garage door.
Yeah, I was not expecting that.
Okay, Jonathan, anything like that happen to you?
No, it's been kind of uneventful compared to that.
No garage doors for you, huh?
No.
Okay.
It's been another fun spring week in Kansas City. I mean, I've gone out and ridden 45 miles this week in shorts and t-shirts, and then took the kids to school in snow boots and a long sleeve coat and gloves one day.
Yeah, what was that about? That came out of nowhere. That was weather didn't even know that was going to happen, and then all of a sudden I get an alert on my phone: blizzard warning. It's like it was supposed to be 50 degrees.
We had a delayed start at school for 2 hours because it was still, the roads were still bad. It was 27 degrees or something in the morning, and it was like it was like 60 degrees at soccer practice the day before.
Yeah. Did you guys get all that wind too with this last?
Oh yeah, yeah. They were out tree trimming like crazy everywhere in the neighborhood today.
We didn't get a lot out here. I mean, we got the wind, but I guess we don't have any tall trees, so
it was ripping around here in Blue Springs.
Yeah, there was still a bunch of limbs down on like the bike trails and stuff.
I didn't know you biked that much. 45 miles is not lightweight mileage.
Yeah, I got out 3 times today or this week. So
3 times today.
Are you training for something, or is it just hobby?
It's for fun.
Have you ever done like an MS 150 or anything, like those big rides?
No, I have been out of it for so long. I used to ride a lot in college, but I haven't in years. So I kind of got back into it recently. And
do you ride like a speed bike or like a mountain bike? What style do you ride? A road bike?
I ride a 2003 Trek 8500 hardtail mountain bike.
Mm-hmm.
I bought a new titanium gravel bike, but it's the first one I had got squished in the mail and damaged, so it went back, and they're moving me to the new one that their new model. So it's going to take a little while till it gets back, but I'm really looking forward to it.
My dad told me a funny story pretty recently about him out riding the trail. He likes riding bikes, but he has like an e-bike, like a aftermarket type thing. It's not one of the. It's like where you attach your own little battery system to whatever bike you want, and it actually ties to the chain system.
Yeah.
I laughed real hard because he was telling me he was out on the trail, and that little thing goes about 30 miles an hour, which is pretty fast, and it has a big battery. At any rate, they're out on Katy Trail. He was out on Katy Trail, and this guy was like huffing and puffing, kind of like up a small grade, a railroad grade, but a small grade. And like Dad just flew by him, like on the e-bike, without even hardly pedaling. And the guy made it his mission to like catch my dad. My dad's in his 70s. He made it his mission to catch my dad, and it was just furiously pedaling and and my dad was just hold the button, like not even working hard. And the guy would get ahead a little bit, and then Dad would, he'd wear out and get ahead. It was like this little like rivalry. Dad said the guy's face was so like consternated, like frustrated that he.
I got my wife one of those on Black Friday.
Uh-huh.
I got her kind of the lightest weight one I could find. It's like 31 pounds, which is not too bad for the e-bikes, because a lot of those ones are 50, 60 pounds.
Sure.
So I got her one that has not as quite a powerful of a motor. It's more of a, it's a lighter weight version.
Uh-huh. Like an assist style.
It's still, that still does it assist up to, 30 miles an hour or something.
Mm-hmm.
So, we go up there's a couple steep grades on this trail that I ride. It's the one right behind my house.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm down in like the lowest gear on my mountain bike, and I'm just cranking away, going up this hill at like 4.5 miles an hour if I'm lucky. And she just pushes the cheat button and just flying up the hill. She's just blazing past me. Yeah, that thing's awesome. I'm glad she has it because it gets her out to ride with me a lot more, and she can ride. She can use it as much or as little as she wants.
Sure.
So it's a really cool bike. Yeah, they're really neat, and you see a lot more people out on them these days. Like I see much more people out on e-bikes than not on e-bikes.
Yeah, they're pretty fun. Ryan, have you ridden one before?
No.
They're pretty fun. They have a lot of torque. They take off pretty nice and get up to speed real quick.
The problem is to get all the kids on them these days too, and they're just flying down the roads. A lot of them are wearing helmets, which is very good. Some of them are wearing like the dirt bike motorcycle helmets with the full chin bar and everything, but they're crazy fast. Like, yeah.
So what do you guys think about Secret Level?
I liked it. I think you guys nailed it in one of the texts that we had. Let's
go episode by episode because there were some good and bad ones.
Agreed. And when it hit, but there was a lot of kind of like not worth your time.
First one was Dungeons and Dragons.
That was bad.
I thought visually it was stunning. I really liked the visual aspects of it, but the story was absolutely stupid.
It was really bad.
I mean, that was one of the dumbest groups of murder hobos that I've ever seen. Continuous bad decisions, splitting the party, like everything you shouldn't do.
But were they doing that in the story because that's what people do?
I didn't like it. It was frustrating.
The story was really bad too. Like how it all played out, it was really poor, visually stunning.
Yeah.
And it was just really poorly done. And it may have been better received if it was not the first episode. It's the first episode and came out of the gate swinging a miss. So
it kind of reminded me of like a Blizzard cinematic in one sense.
It did, but Blizzard cinematics are more cinematic. That was...
Yeah. I didn't like the way that they tried to implement like the spell casting and all the effects.
Yeah, Herc Driver says he liked it. It didn't feel, this is going to sound really dumb, it didn't feel overpowered enough for what they were trying to convey. Like you got the sense with this grandeur and how visually it looked that things were going to be more over the top when they started casting spells and stuff.
Yeah,
I thought the mage was going to be like, fireball, and then didn't.
It's just like shoot like a first level cantrip, like we're shooting firebolts and everything. Like why are you doing this?
Yeah, it was.
They were. I didn't like the warlock.
Maybe we're too much monk, nerd. We're too much.
The dwarven monk was lame. This is probably one we want to skip to because I play way too much D&D. So this is the one I get stuck on for a while. The next one is the Sifu one. I liked that a lot.
Well, wait a second. Go back to that first one. Did you guys write any notes on like the black levels or the base or the surround or anything? Did you guys kind of keep that stuff in mind?
That one was unremarkable.
So
I thought it had decent sound. I mean, it was.
It wasn't good. It wasn't good. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't something that I thought, oh, this could be demo material.
There was outdoor when they were in the outdoor fights. I mean, there was surround active. It was doing things. It was. It wasn't the worst one from an audio standpoint, but I liked it visually. I thought the dragon, especially the gold dragon at the end, had a really cool look to it. And when the Tiamat transformation took place, I thought that was pretty cool too.
I thought the black levels on that one, you know how we've talked about before, even in the last couple podcasts, how sometimes black levels look pretty decent on a kind of a lower contrast projector, like not a JVC, and sometimes they look bad. That one had bad black levels to me.
What did you watch it in?
I watched it in HDR to start. I watched the first 5 episodes or so of the series in HDR, and then I switched to SDR because I was thinking like maybe this is better in SDR, and it was for my purposes.
So I watched it in HDR 10 plus. It was the first time I've ever actually watched anything in HDR 10 plus.
Well, you must have the upgraded Prime because I don't think I had 10 plus as an option.
I do. I would like I have the paid Prime. So I was getting
HDR.
I was getting an HDR10 Plus, and I was running it through the Fire Stick because I don't normally use that, and I have been using it lately because it does a much better job of frame rate matching. And since I've been spoiled by certain pieces of video processing equipment, I've been kind of paying more attention to that. So I thought it looked pretty good. Yeah.
I purposely wrote down on that one that it didn't have as much bass as I would have expected. Like for some of the stuff that was going on, there was some bass in some of these episodes. Even the intro for Secret Level had a whole lot of bass.
It did
a lot more than a lot of the episodes.
It had a lot of really low frequency bass.
Yeah,
actually.
wobbling. Tactical transducers wobble in the chair and stuff.
It did.
Yeah. Okay, we can move on.
So Sifu, I actually really liked the story behind Sifu.
I really did too. I thought it was a great story.
I enjoyed that one.
I don't particularly love that style of animation, but I really liked the story.
Yeah, the animation, take it or leave it, but the story was great.
Mm-hmm.
Story was awesome. I liked the whole concept. Again, there wasn't really anything demo worthy in there, but it was well done. I enjoyed it.
I thought there was something demo worthy specifically when he went in that large room and they played the bass chord. There was a lot of bass on that chord as he's kind of walking into the big sprawling room, and it's got that low note, and it's the tactile transducers are playing like 0 to 20, 30 hertz or whatever, the shakers, and it was making my chair move a lot, and it sounded really good. It looked really good at that scene. I was thinking I might like to clip that particular instance of it right there, that final fight scene.
When he first enters the club or when he goes into the final room?
When he goes into the final room.
Okay.
When he walked in the final confrontation, the bass chord sounded great, I wrote down. And I wrote excellent bass all around. Like I liked that one.
I liked it.
Audio.
I just didn't think it was held up in comparison to some of the other ones, as far as demo material.
So I wrote down that was like a John Wick anime, but we had John Wick later. We'll get to that in a moment.
But I liked that it was a John Wick anime, but it felt like the main character could fail because he constantly died, which I really liked. Like it was his struggle that he went through, and I liked that piece. The story was great. It wasn't just I'm an overpowered protagonist and I'm going to come in and I'm going to kill everything. There was a struggle.
There were consequences to his failure too.
Yes.
What did you think about the end when he sat down at the bar with the old lady that made the good noodles? Did she recognize him? Did she not recognize him?
She was like eventually.
Yeah. At the very end, she did.
Like I wasn't quite sure, and maybe I'm not remembering correctly, but he identified him, or she thought it was his like relation,
nephew,
or something.
Yeah, something like that.
And then realized, you think she made the connection at some point?
Yes,
I think at the end. Yeah,
that's cool.
I did enjoy that one. Next one, episode 3, New World: The Once and Future King. This was fun.
It was awesome.
It was great. Arnold did an excellent job.
There were a bunch of like Arnold Schwarzenegger tagline, like Easter eggs in there. The whole concept of just like the big bolsterous dumb idiot charging in there and dying again and again and again, and then actually learning something from his failure and struggle.
Well, eventually, yes,
because he kept failing, like, and trying harder and harder and going down dark roads, and eventually just hit like rock bottom, and then like came out ahead from there.
I like that one.
Separate a little bit from you guys on that one. I didn't like that one. I thought Schwarzenegger. I like Schwarzenegger in certain things, but he's a bad voice actor. He's a bad actor. He played that poorly. I thought personally.
I thought he was really cheesy, and that was intentional for that role. I think it was meant to be over the top and just dumb ostentatious, and it was funny.
Well, and then I was confused about the redemption story because like I didn't really make sense of it. He grabs the crown. He has no subjects. And
then finds out he has nothing, and so he uses the crown and like part of the statue of himself
to help the guy with the arm.
Well, he takes that and then he spends like multiple death cycles, like learning how to be a blacksmith, going the opposite way to make an arm for his one loyal subject.
Yeah, but he still was kind of like, I don't know. I didn't feel any attachment or affinity for him as the character. Just felt still like a jerk off.
And he's definitely like a quest giver or something in that game. So then that was kind of what that was for. So could you tie all these different episodes into the respective games or the genre? Like some of them I had no idea what they were. Most of them I did. I had to look up some because like there was a couple of them like Sifu I had not heard of. A couple of these later ones we'll get to them like they're like MMORPGs or like phone games or there was one that was based on a Chinese game that was I was probably my favorite episode, but we'll get there.
Okay. Anything else? I wrote that one was weird. What even happened? That was my first line of my little summary.
So they wound up on
loved it, and I was like,
they wound up on an episode, or basically like Groundhog's Day. I mean, like you couldn't die. Everyone was eternal on Eternum. So
how did he get there? Like, there's a lot of things.
The shipwreck. Yeah. So
did Jonathan even watch it?
I watched it. I thought it was too weird. I didn't get it. It was over my head.
All right, episode 4, Unreal Tournament. Zan.
I liked it. I never played Unreal Tournament, so
no.
Yeah.
I like this one a lot.
I liked it
much better than the previous one to me.
It was better than the previous one.
I played a lot of Unreal Tournament.
I did
the
too.
voiceovers were really fun. Like it had some nostalgia built in. It felt like a little bit like Tron Legacy type environment. With like the games, if you will.
Oh, we evidently didn't say spoilers at the beginning.
Spoilers.
Lots of spoilers.
Yeah.
So I think this one, it was good, but I don't think it was to the level of some of the other ones still.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like these all had different budgets.
Oh, yeah.
And some of them could have been much better than what they ended up being. This one could have been, I think, a lot better.
I was wondering if they used the same voice actor or if they just took the sound clips out of the game or something, because it was real fun to me to hear. And it sounded like it hadn't aged. It sounded like the same guy.
I think it was the voice clip or the sound clips.
Yeah.
Well, I played most of those games.
Have you guys watched Love, Death, and Robots on Netflix?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same kind of thing. I mean, you get some there were some very hit and miss episodes of that series too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And some that were amazing.
Some of them were really good. The story in those, I think, well, it was more hit or miss. Some of these stories were really good, and I really enjoyed them. The story in Unreal Tournament was pretty good. I feel like it didn't encapsulate the fast-paced action of what Unreal Tournament actually was and is, though. And it did
deviate a little bit.
It did, and I wish they would have gone more to just the nonstop brutality of what Unreal Tournament actually is.
Because it looked more like a Running Man type game show. I mean, or any of those gladiator game shows.
Well, that didn't bother me, but it was the game itself is so fast, and it didn't bring that in.
Okay,
so that was my issue with it. I liked the story behind Zan. That was cool, kind of explaining the character arc and things like that, but how the game was represented, I wasn't a huge fan of. What do you think of the sound?
I thought it sounded good. Not top tier from the list that we had, but good, like enjoyable.
I'd agree. Next one's my favorite.
Yeah.
It's in my top couple, I think.
Oh man. Episode 5, Warhammer 40K. It was I didn't have any expectations going into this one because it's a high bar, right? This is a big IP. And I think they did it. I mean, it was great. I'd
love to watch a full-length movie like that. Like it really ignited the interest.
Absolutely.
Then play Space Marine 1 and 2, especially Space Marine 2. Yeah. And you'll get that exact same thing because that's all Titus's stuff.
Yeah, it was, regardless of it, they just did it really, really well. The brutality of the whole thing, the Imperium, the religion, just so good.
How unstoppable the Space Marines really are.
So good.
When Titus runs really through the one
done.
car and then just jumps on the tank and drops a hand grenade in it like it's nothing.
When they went melee, like at the very beginning, when they all went melee, I sat there and it was everything that I thought it should be. Just unstoppable through the whole thing. It was great.
Yeah.
So this is one I got to watch both in my theater and in Ryan's. And they're kind of two different experiences like that. So, I mean, when I watched it at home, the black levels on the JVC make it look like a different experience just because it's it feels more dark. It feels like more in a nighttime raid. It just gives it a different impression. But the scope of the screen and like the highlights that you get, especially when they go into that warp section and you get all the big explosions of blue on the Christie, just had an immersive effect that really kind of brought you into the picture.
Yeah.
So
I think the neon highlights were very noticeable, even on like the Epson LS 12.
Oh yeah. No, they were extremely noticeable. But like,
and bright, and
they didn't have the same. I mean, even at because I'm getting maybe 2/3 of the brightness on screen. Ryan is maybe not even that. But that's on a 120-inch screen versus 160. So like there's so much more intense, and it really gives like the sense of immersion. And then the sound was a little bit different too.
They did a really good job of using darks and lights simultaneously. It wasn't just dark. It was dark with bright, which was great. That whole dark sequence was fantastic.
Right. And that's like when you went to that second half of the show, like your theater really took off the second half. Once they slid down and made the transition, it looked phenomenal from there on. The first half, there was just not enough gradient to really bring out the picture.
Enjoyed it.
Oh yeah, it looked good. It just, that was one of those ones where like the second half worked much better there. And that was the other way around. Like I think the first half looked better here, but I couldn't get like the highlights that just kind of really wowed you from a visual standpoint that I got over at your place.
Even when they fought the Chaos Lord, even he had bright elements in it. So everything was dark and bright, and it was artistically, visually, and audibly, it was so well done.
It was just like watching Godzilla versus Kong.
It was so well done. Even if the story sucked in that one, it probably still would have been one of my favorites, just because of the visuals and the sound. It was fantastic.
Yeah. The sound was really good, especially when you had the extra bass to support it.
Yeah. The music was great. The whole thing was fantastic.
I wrote super impressive visually. Audio was very awesome too. It wrapped around the whole room and behind, even with just 5.1 stereo. The story was interesting. It was the first one I watched at true reference level. Like as it started up, I was like, all right, now we're talking. And
I went past reference on that one.
Yeah, it was not fair watching that, Brian.
It went the dark scene when they're fighting the demons, when they go into the pit, and how when the demons first come out and you can hear them coming around, that was a great setup for what's about to happen. Just those little audio elements, the audio cues that the audience takes in for, oh, now they're going to come from every direction. Even though, as you said, Jonathan, it was 5-1, they used what they had so well.
Yeah. And even the story point, he carries the psyker the whole time through in that coffin.
Oh, so I love.
You don't really know what you're doing. I mean, the fact that this guy's been in the box the whole time, that they're just dragging along, and then it doesn't even work.
Well, it saved them from the demons. The
initial
that came
attacks,
down. It kind of held them back, and then
for a little bit until they break through.
Died.
Yeah.
I love the intro too, where they accepted the mission. And it's like, you won't come back from this. Like even like the very beginning of the episode, you're like, all right, the stakes are grave.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it played out.
I had no complaints about that one. None. Well, okay, I had one. The ending was just kind of
I mean, you got Titus's like.
I understood it, but it was.
And then you got like the fact that he was like the old guy had kind of like given up that he's accepting his death because they're going to commit aerial bombardment and they have an army of attackers coming right at him. And
I understood it. It was more of, you had this hugely epic story visually, audibly coming up to that, and then it just kind of ended. It would have been cool to see Titus go out like doing something, and I'm being particular, but that was the only letdown I had.
Instead of a bad guys don't look at explosions kind of ending,
maybe,
or good guys don't look at explosions.
Yeah.
Yeah, like what are those kind of like like charging in, swinging his chainsaw kind of thing?
I don't know. That probably would have been cliche too.
It would have been extremely cliche, but it would have looked kind of cool.
So the next one,
before you go, Henry Cavill's Warhammer 40K.
Oh,
I'm really looking forward to that.
I'm ready.
As long as Amazon doesn't mess it up, it'll be good.
That's true.
I'm ready.
Amazon has not had the best track record with very extensive IPs, but
that is true.
I mean, Henry Cavill quit The Witcher because it didn't go the direction he wanted to go to.
The first series, the first
when he was still
Witcher was phenomenal.
Right.
If they give me just one, I'll be happy. They screw up the rest, fine. Give me one.
As long as Henry Cavill, I think, because Henry Cavill's a giant Warhammer super fan.
Yes.
And as long as he gets to do what he thinks he needs to do, I think it should turn out really well.
And a small little trip. They did the Fallout show, right? Prime did.
Yeah.
I really like the Fallout show, and I'm not even a Fallout game player, but I enjoyed the show. Did you guys like that? So I think they can do it.
It's been pretty good. There's been a couple decent like Amazon series, but I mean, the Wheel of Time.
I'm hopeful.
The Wheel of Time was a big disappointment. The Lord of the Rings, I couldn't even watch.
No,
I'm hopeful.
It's really, really bad. But I mean, some of those other ones like Invincible is good. The Boys was good for a while. Then it kind of went off the rails. Like some of those other ones, it kind of fell into that same thing as like Game of Thrones and True Blood. Like once it kept going for a while, they tried to go over the top more and more, and there was just no more shock value left.
Oh, there was shock value enough that I turned it off and didn't return. It got way too much for me.
I got a lot.
So the next episode, when I was watching these, they didn't say what game they were part of. So
no,
all it said was Circle. I didn't realize what this was until the end.
I didn't recognize him at the end. I was like, what am I watching here? And then I looked up like, oh, okay.
So you're not watching what you think you're watching. You're watching a game that's not out yet.
It's Pac-Man.
It's Pac-Man, but it was actually kind of an intro trailer for a game that's coming out next year or this year.
Oh.
Where you play... Yeah, it's a game. What's the name of that game? Let me see if I can find it. I
was thinking this is very dark and violent compared to the Pac-Man I'm used to.
So it's a new Bandai Namco game called Shadow Labyrinth. So it's like it's supposed to be, I guess, a Metroid like style game where you get to play that guy, and you kind of fight your way through like that labyrinth and stuff. So that's kind of what it really is, but. Yeah.
I liked it.
I liked it a lot. It was one of my favorites.
You did?
I liked actually that it was a little bit more disconnected from what it should be representing. I liked that it was you had to draw the connection. It wasn't in your face that this what it was. It was kind of loosely based on. It was more than loosely based, but you get what I mean.
I was going to say, the only thing that's tie into Pac-Man was like the comment about the eyes and stuff.
Eating the ghosts and eating the fruit and eating everything else and growing stronger by eating. It was cool. I like that one a lot.
Jonathan, go back to New World and the Once and Future King, okay?
Watch it again?
Yeah, I'm kidding. So I liked that one.
So that one had the shakers doing a lot. On that Pac-Man, there was a lot of low frequency stuff in there that maybe it wasn't even so audible, but it was there.
Mm-hmm.
Next, I didn't understand. This was Crossfire.
Yeah, it's like an Asian PvP shooter, and I thought this was the worst episode by a lot.
I didn't like this one.
Yeah, so this one had so much potential. There was a scene like right at the very beginning when they go out of the building, and they're in the middle of that hurricane, and you for about 3 or 4 seconds you hear the hurricane and surround. It's like kind of roaring around you, and then all of a sudden it just doesn't play for the rest of the episode.
Yep.
Like there could have been so much opportunity for immersion with wind and sound effects.
This whole thing did not make sense.
Yeah. But the fact is, like, they could have had like a good immersion from this storm sequence, like shaking the cars when they're in it, howling through like the seams. You could have done a really great job from an audio standpoint that have brought together a mediocre story. And that because they also gave up on that, it really kind of killed that for me.
Oh, it was below mediocre in virtually every way. We're going to make multi-kilometer sniper shots in a hurricane
with the magic sniper scope that sees through cars and people.
Yeah.
And everything else. Like, no.
I said, no. I wrote down, based on the division, it makes you realize animation fighting is just as dumb as you think it would be. It was a terrible episode. That's what I wrote.
It was really bad.
I was like it was one of those where I was almost like ready to just like push skip and like get out of it because
It was bad.
But
But the
no
next
redeeming qualities.
episode 8, Armored Core.
I liked that one.
Oh, it was phenomenal. I've been a huge Armored Core fan. I've played all of them. They're fantastic. And I think Keanu Reeves did a great job of doing what he should have been doing, like representing that pilot, or my brain escapes me of what they're actually called. It was just great. I love the visuals. I love how they did it. I loved how the ending, like you think he's going to save the guy and he just pokes and crushes his head.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that was a great ending.
That was a heavy ending.
That was a heavy ending, but it was unexpected, and it was, yes.
Yeah, I liked that. I liked a lot of that episode. It was really good.
That was great. It was very much like Armored Core 6.
So I don't know. I'm not familiar with that game series. So that's basically what it is. You play as that guy in the game series, or what? Or it's just that
a bunch of different people. You're superhuman, and you have superhuman reflexes and all of these things in order to make you a better pilot for your corps. And you're a mercenary in a lot of this. So you just accept money and go to the highest bidder and do whatever they ask you to do.
So when he got the contract to go destroy the other mechs or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
that's just like what he does. That's just his.
That's just what he does. So he could fight for one corporation, because it's a bunch of corporations vying for power, right? So he could fight for one corporation and then the next day fight for the other one against that same corporation. So it's just how that whole series plays out. And the stories are great. It's a From Software game, so the stories are fantastic. It's always been ridiculously hard. The depth of them, the customization of your core, all of this stuff, it's super cool. Mm-hmm. I just liked that they brought all of that in. It was great. I liked that one.
Yeah. Anything that has giant robots in it usually wins.
I was thinking this is a little bit like Pacific Rim to me. That wasn't my favorite episode, but
it was not like Pacific Rim at all.
At all. No.
God, a little bit.
No, not even remotely close.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to get Jonathan a Pacific Rim t-shirt or something. And I'm going to wear, maybe I'm just going to have a Pacific Rim shirt that I'm going to wear, or some type of hat or something. I don't know. How is it like Pacific Rim?
Because there are giant robots.
Yeah, kind of dumb stuff happening. Like, we've seen all this before. Iron Man.
Did you think that The Matrix was like Pacific Rim? I know it came out before. It had giant robots.
Matrix 3, like the third episode where they had
you can't even call those giant robots. When you take a battle mech that's basically just like legs and 2 machine guns, and then you put the squishy person as the frontmost part that doesn't have a cockpit around them. What was that? That is the worst designed suit of armor ever constructed.
That wasn't defensive; it was offensive.
I mean, even Ripley's skip loader in that had a fall cage where if you tip over, you trip on that thing and it's going to squish your head in the ground.
Are we talking about Matrix still?
Yes, the machine gun guys. That was probably the worst robot suit ever designed.
Oh, look at this poor comment from Oops, sorry, one of our regulars. He's like, "What are you talking about?" He doesn't watch this. Go watch Secret Level, man. And you'll get up to speed.
The Secret Level on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, you might just turn this off and join it later, and then you'll understand what we're talking about.
It's worth it.
It's 15 episodes of basically video game based animation or animated shorts.
It's worth it. So next episode was
pause. I keep telling you to rewind for a second, but I wanted to hear what you guys thought of the sound on that one. So I know you love the story. I know you love the characters and the background, and have some nostalgia with it. The sound wasn't A tier to me compared to some of the other episodes. I didn't think.
No. It was fine. It wasn't anything amazing.
It was okay.
Same with the mech combat. It had that whole kind of dull gray thing that they do to kind of hide details.
Yeah, but that's kind of how the games are too.
Right. Because
it felt very much like the game. Yeah. They did a good job of keeping it in in universe. That was good.
I think it hit really well, but it wasn't like visually or auditory stunning. It just
no, it was not the level of Warhammer,
right.
But I still enjoyed it.
Fair.
So next was The Outer Worlds, The Company We Keep.
I thought that was a great episode.
This one had a great story.
Mm-hmm.
The story, I actually really enjoyed this one.
Yeah.
Audibly, visually, not impressive, but it wasn't meant to be. It was more story driven. Mm-hmm. And it was great. I want to know what Jonathan thought.
So I like this one too. I wrote great surround, good base that made me jump when the rock fell down. Do you remember that rock that fell the sky out of nowhere? Like you weren't expecting, all of a sudden just smashed.
Yeah, when everybody was dying.
I was like, at the very beginning, we was trying to connect the credits. Yeah.
And then I said a really engaging story, but I said a sad conclusion that's kind of meaningless because Amos learned to lie.
He did.
When he said he loved Auntie Cleo, even though she had taken everything from him.
Yes.
And he wouldn't lie the entire episode until the end. So that was a strange conclusion to me. Like, why? He just didn't want to deal with it anymore. So he just gave the answer that would make it like.
No, because if he gave the correct answer, the girl would have been, she would have lost her position.
I don't know.
I thought she was the one that was lying on behalf of the company. Remember,
yeah, but that's what I thought was going to happen. Like he was going to stay true to his heart and he wasn't going to lie. And then he lied and it made me mad.
So he's like, he's nothing. He's not human left anymore. And now he's lying. Is that part of the connection?
It's Forrest Gump running after
humanity.
Jenny. No, it's Forrest Gump running after Jenny. Time and time again, everything get bad happening to him. He keeps going for Jenny.
Well, I think it was meant that he wasn't him anymore. He was a robot and he gave up the one thing that made him him. I mean, the very beginning when he said, I will not lie. I'm going to work until I have the 75 pieces to be able to do this or pay back my debt. I will not lie. And so then I think at the end, it felt like it just wasn't him anymore, which throughout the whole thing, he'd given his entire self to be with her. And then it wasn't him at the end.
So I liked that one. I have no idea what the game is. Like, have you guys played the game or any connection with that at all?
No, I haven't. I'm curious to look into it now.
I thought at the beginning it was going to be something like BioShock.
I did too. Exactly. That's what I thought it was going to be.
I was pumped for BioShock and then it wasn't.
It had those vibes for certain.
It did.
Beginning.
It very much did. MW agrees. He thought it was going to be BioShock 2. And then it wasn't. And I was disappointed. But the story was good. I still enjoyed it. Anything else about that one before Jonathan tells me to go back?
No, I won't say go back on this one.
Okay. This one was a letdown for me. Mega Man.
Yeah, not good.
This could have been great.
I wish it had more in depth. I wish it was a little bit longer. Yeah. I liked it. It was fine. It was a good little intro story, but I didn't.
It felt more like a trailer.
Yeah, it was like the opening for a Nintendo game. It was about as in depth as that, as the one on NES where the text pops up.
It didn't feel
in 20x.
I wrote a C rating. Didn't excite. I may have been needed to be more familiar with the Mega Man universe and story, but it seemed pretty tame. And
I was a colossal Mega Man fan growing up. I had everyone in Nintendo. I played all the Mega Man ones. I played all the Mega Man X ones. They're great. I love side-scrolling platform games.
As good as some of these others looked, like this is your low-budget one you're talking about. This looked like it was a different studio, a different set of graphic designers. Like the quality wasn't there.
It was okay. It just, you got to have a good story to captivate me. And some of these just did not deliver on that. It started, but there was, do you really need to explain Mega Man? Am I missing something? Like, do we have to explain? I feel like when you have to go back and explain what it is, which is kind of what they did.
Well, they try to do like prequel or sequel or out of
but you don't need to do that. I mean, you're missing the whole point.
But the point was not to retell a story that had already been told. It was to try to do like some other little aspect.
They didn't tell any story.
It was kind of it was an intro-ish thing. Cause I mean, Rockman was not Mega Man in the beginning. He was a helper robot.
Fine. Tell that part of the story, do it quicker, and then get into what Mega Man is supposed to be doing.
Well, they either needed to have more of him prior to becoming Mega Man or more after. Like they just focused on too narrow of a segment that didn't really give any growth or like development.
No, it was dumb.
Yeah. I'm not going to argue with that. I love Mega Man, but that was a big letdown.
Yeah, that was a big letdown. I didn't find it visually or audibly remarkable at all.
Yeah,
the whole thing was for me. Next, I didn't realize what this was until midway through, probably. Splunky.
No, you're Exodus Odyssey.
Sorry, Exodus Odyssey. I didn't like this one.
The dad chasing the daughter.
Yeah, it was okay, but
I liked it.
I think the time dilation stuff got a little heavy-handed. I mean, I kind of get where they were going, but the fact that like he kept chasing her around and that they were trying to explain that, I guess
they spent too long on the time dilation part.
Yes. Or like he was traveling at different speeds or spending different time at close to light speed, but not as fast as she was going. So time was moving different relative to them, but they didn't show it really in a way that it made sense. It made you look at it like, wait, they just went to the same place. Why is she 20 years older now?
Yeah.
So they kind of skipped the important part that would have made it make more sense to most people. So like, I liked the story. I liked that, the dad going out of his way to try to help her out while she lived her own life of adventure that she wanted. I thought I liked the story, but it could have done a little better.
I said this one was reference quality video and audio. I liked it. Story was neat. Timelines being different was neat, like Interstellar. Looked great. Watched it in SDR in 5.1. This one was really clean. Like if you turned it up to reference and watched it through it sounded great.
Oh, I watched the whole thing at reference.
Details good.
I set it to reference and just let her go.
That's reference plus what, 12 or 16 dB on base.
Some of them. So it was. There was a lot. I think it was okay. There was just so much potential. It felt like I was let down because it could have been awesome, and then it wasn't.
Yeah.
Some of the fighting sequences with the ships were fantastic at the end, wasn't it? I mean, I thought
there was some visually cool stuff, but the story's got to be there for me. Unless you're a giant robot.
Was there? It was a father-daughter. I got 4 daughters. The father was chasing his daughter, trying to help her.
I got a daughter, but it just wasn't. They spent too much time on the time thing, and it just didn't work for me.
Yeah. It kind of got to be like watching an episode of like Dragon Ball Z or any like pick an anime.
I'm on Dragon Ball Z.
Right. I mean, there's too much like charging up or watching any Gundam one where they do the same like hangar launch scene 15 times. That takes up half the episode because they got to put the guys got to get in the armor and then they've got to plug the thing in and charge the ramp and shoot them down the ramp and it uncharges and they got to attach the battle packs and like the same cut scene over and over again filled up so much of that.
I think you guys watched this all back to back, and you were tired by this point, and you were annoyed and ready to quit. Because I love not the next one. The one after the next one was my favorite. Okay,
I watched them over 2 or 3 nights.
I watched them over 2 nights.
The next one, Splunky. I liked this one. I mean, I liked it for what it was. It wasn't amazing, but I think it was.
Dora the Explorer with infinite lives.
Well, that's what Splunky is.
Yes, I know. I get exactly what it was. It was like
it encapsulated the game very well.
Yes, or playing Pitfall back in the day.
Yeah.
I mean, it's. I get exactly what it was. I liked the life mechanic was fun, and the fact that they were tracking all the deaths, and that was kind of the nice thing through all of these is like the life and the respawn thing. They kind of kept going through a lot of these games or shorts.
So this one was interesting to me in the sense that like at first when they kind of made the theme like dying is part of the journey and the adventure and the fun. Like don't get frustrated with dying. It's part of the fun. At first I kind of rejected that notion thinking like that's dumb, but it's not really dumb because I like roguelites. And roguelites, you're going to die a bunch of time. You can't even be the best roguelite and play it at the beginning. You're going to have to build up your stats.
I like how Jonathan initially hated these old games that he likes to play.
Well, I mean, like I only recently started getting into them. Ultimately, like I play The other part of me is I like hardcore games. So if you die, you're dead, and that's the end. And that's not cool when you die. Like action RPGs, like that's the end. So that was my initial like gut reaction to say no. But there is a piece where like if you're constantly building up your character and death is part of the equation, like it's built into the game. Like okay, I get where they're coming from there.
Yeah, same thing with a lot of these games that have epic boss fights. I mean, like From Software games. How many times you die trying to beat some of these conflicts in a Dark Souls game?
Mm-hmm.
They're really hard. The fact that it takes you a while to figure out the strategy, to do all these other things, to get past that encounter, it makes it a neater encounter than if you just breeze through it the first time every time.
Mm-hmm. So that one was I had fun with it. It was unremarkable in every way, but it wasn't bad.
Yes.
The next one I enjoyed.
No, next is Concord. Sorry, number 13.
So I enjoyed this one.
Oh, you liked that one?
I wouldn't say I enjoyed it. I wouldn't say it was my favorite, but it was fun.
Ryan, you always say you start out strong and then you're like, they don't like it all back.
I did.
That's probably my favorite. The Space
like
Pirate one. I loved this one.
Do you guys know what this one's about?
No.
I can like something, but it not be on the same level as Armored Core or Warhammer. It's okay.
So Concord was a game that PlayStation, Sony pushed it out. That was so bad when it came out. They basically refunded everyone who'd bought the game and then took it as a tax write-off for like $500 million.
No,
yeah.
10 people got to play.
There were like 10 people to play Concord. I mean, I think their peak on Steam was like 1,000, or it was either 1,000 or 10,000. It was nothing for a multi-year AAA game that was supposed to be this amazing new thing. And that this was what they were trying to do. They were trying to create an entire like cinematic universe out of the lore of Concord, and it didn't. It failed. The players in the game are actually the ones that you see at the very end when they're in the bar talking about what happened in the past. And so it was based upon characters that were kind of like a prequel story to the game itself.
So I love this one. This one might have been my favorite. It's right up there with the Warhammer one to me. Super bright colors.
With Armored Core.
Excellent use of blacks and contrast. Like it looked fantastic on the Epson, even though it had some very dark scenes. Like they did it well. Starfield looked great. I turned it up to reference, and I even got in trouble. I watched it several times. My wife came down. She's like, "Turn that down. It's too loud. You're shaking the vents all over the house." The colors were fantastic. Like even the little like mascot guy that was in the hallway with the balloons, little green mascot.
That was cool.
Who pulls out the guns and starts shooting. Reference quality video, like that's something I would absolutely show guests when they come to my theater, because I thought like whatever that little nebula was that they went into with all the different rainbow colors and stuff.
Oh yeah, visually this one was great.
Probably the best, right up there with Warhammer, if not the best on the visual side. Like super great animation. The close-ups on the face were fantastic. I really liked it.
I wish this had been part of a better game, because there was some promise there that could have been cooler and in like an expanded type universe thing.
Why would you do that though? Why would you do one on Concord?
It was a new IP that they were trying to boot and create a whole series of things off of. I mean, it was another one of those. What's the big like 6v6 pop-in shooter kind of thing with all the
but my
big,
point is why would
but,
you make part of secret level be Concord?
Because I think this was heavily Sony based, and they made all this stuff before Concord failed.
That's probably true. And given the last one, which we'll talk about.
Exactly. So that's the same thing. I mean, a lot of it was heavy Sony based. So that's, I think, why it was in there, because this was made before the game failed. And this was, they were meant to be kind of like trailers or to draw interest to these games.
So the next one, I really like the next one.
This was my favorite one.
Warhammer was my favorite. Story-wise, this may have been my favorite.
Story-wise, visually, conceptually, this one, I love this one.
Which was great. So, Honor of Kings, The Way of All Things. I love the whole thing. It wasn't in your face like Warhammer was, but the story helped with that. This felt like I was watching a short narrative from start to finish. Like it did the whole thing. And whoever wrote this one did a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
Fantastic job.
It had really big like Dark City vibes, whereas he gains control of the city at the end. Like I loved it.
Right.
And then the whole humanity versus the AI and whether the AI actually knows what he's going to do or not. It was awesome.
Whole thing was fantastic.
So once again, I didn't understand the ending of this one terribly much. Like it was the old guy again, like the AI that was defeated at the end that was knocking to try again. Like I don't really understand what was going on there at the very last scene.
Cycle.
Yeah.
The AI was going to challenge the young boy again. Like I thought the AI died. How is he back again? That's the part I don't really understand.
What's going on with my camera?
Same thing mine did. So that's why I turned.
So the young boy challenged the AI to take control, and he won. And the AI conceded. And then the AI fell off a cliff or whatever, like got sucked down, whatever.
Didn't really fail, but yeah.
And then he's knocking on the door to challenge the young kid at the end. Like it was his voice again and his face again. And that's the part I didn't understand. I liked it too. I thought it was great, but I just didn't understand that last moment.
I'm not gonna lie, I didn't understand that very last particular piece either.
I didn't look it up, but
look it up. I want to know. Well, I stuffed my face.
Well, I'll look it up later. I don't want to do it right now. It might take some time.
All right, the last one.
Boo.
The PlayStation trailer. Yeah, it was dumb.
The worst one of the whole thing.
Stupid.
Now, the only thing I really liked about it was the fact that, like, and there's been other movies in genre like that where everyone is so entrenched in just like an ad-filled, microtransaction-based world that they have no real grasp on reality. And that I kind of thought I liked that aspect of it. Like, hey, I just did all these crazy quests. What do you get? Well, now my bike is burnt orange.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, kind of making fun of it.
And that would have, I think I would have liked it more if they didn't just start jamming in all of these other IPs.
Yeah,
but that was part of it, right? It seemed like a Sony ad, really.
It was a Sony
ad. I know it was part of it, but the story would have been good. I think I would have liked that if they didn't just start making it a commercial for all of these other IPs.
Yeah,
it didn't. Yeah,
I liked where it started. I didn't like where it ended.
Visually, it looked good. The main character looked good. It was, but it was between that and the one that was based off the Division or whatever. The you called it Cross something or other.
Yeah, it's a like
those were the two worst to me.
So it's a game I guess that's popular in like South Korea and China. I don't know the game that it was based on, but that's what it says online.
Yeah, this is one I actually did consider turning off, but I was thinking, it's just short. I'll just leave it on because most of these are like 15, 20 minutes at tops.
I think Mega Man was like 6.
Yeah, they were bad. That was bad. So if you had to pick one that was your favorite, what was it? All right, let's break this into 3 categories: story, video, and audio.
You just made it more complicated. Absolute favorite was number 13 for me. The one I was talking about that had
really
theme. The Concord one. Yeah, I liked that one a lot.
I'd say 14. I really liked the Honor of Kings one.
And yours was the Warhammer 40,000.
Oh, is this overall?
Yeah.
I think it's locking on them. There we go. Yeah.
So interesting. We all 3 had different favorites.
Warhammer
was really a close second for me.
Mm-hmm. It was too.
Best story?
Probably the same one for me. The Honor of Kings, I think, had a great story to it.
I really liked Warhammer's story. God, my camera. I really liked Warhammer's story, but Honor of Kings also was really good.
I really like the Exodus story too, though.
Exodus.
The father chasing the dog.
Yeah,
I did too.
I like the premise. I don't like the story and how it was played out.
Right.
I liked the Anti-Cleo episode for the story as well.
Mm-hmm.
That might be my favorite story.
Yeah.
What about video?
From a video and audio standpoint, I'd probably say Warhammer.
No, just video. Let's Separate them. I mean, both of mine are going to be Warhammer, but
mine was the Space Pirates one because I just thought those vibrant colors were just fantastic, and the animation of the characters' faces and like everything on it was just A+++.
The intro to Warhammer, when they're showing the close-up of the Space Marine's face, when he's looking and you can see the reflections in the eyes, and so good. The atmosphere of everything and how it brought it together. Not only did it look good, but it pushed towards the story. So good. So well done. Just give me a movie of that. And I would die happy, man. That by itself, I have contemplated just putting that as part of my demo. Just put up the whole episode and let it go.
If you want a movie of that, just literally watch all the cutscenes like back to back for Space Marine 2. And that's it.
I have. So that's video. Sound wise, what's your favorite?
Probably the Warhammer one.
Yeah,
and it's probably most likely because I heard it at your place, which didn't help at all.
I think the Warhammer one was fantastic for sound.
I got back and listened to that again. And I was just wah, wah.
Yeah, we're in somewhat agreement. Usually, we're within a couple tiers of each other, right? As far as like if you lump them together, we're in the same ballpark.
I don't know. We hated Concord, and you liked it.
You didn't hate it, did you? You hated it?
Okay,
no, I didn't hate it. I wish it could have been better.
That was the wrong choice. Yeah, you may be right.
So Concord to me was like watching the pilot for a series that you know is going to be really bad. So even if the pilot was good, you know what it's turning into is going to fall downhill. So it just always had like you know it might taste good today, but you know you're going to be sick tomorrow. So that's what Concord felt like for me.
Wow,
I think that probably colored some of it for me. So I mean that.
So when I was watching these things, I was not looking at the titles, and they were not popping up. It was just back to back to back to episodes. I didn't even know what I was watching.
Oh, I got the title
at the end of
the
trailer.
Name.
If you watch the opening, it shows you like what it is,
and
for most of them, it says the game. For almost all of them.
Oh, I didn't see the game. I just got like Circle. Or
I think it's Pac-Man and then Circle below it or something.
I never saw that. I don't remember seeing
it. I just had no description. So most of these I didn't know what they were, except for the obvious ones like Mega Man, and not even, like you say, not even until halfway through when he puts on his blue suit or whatever. But
yeah, I think it said Pac-Man Circle on that one, on number 6 when it started.
Mine wasn't showing titles for some reason.
You had to watch the opening credits. It was at the end of it.
Oh, maybe that's why, because they have that little skip credit feature on there.
You skip that, yeah, and you skipped all the way into it because it was the last second of the credit. It would pop up and show it.
So MW is all about that Dungeons and Dragons.
That was his favorite.
Mm-hmm. And then he also says his favorite one was the one with Arnold.
That's the one I didn't even.
I loved it. I think it was really
I enjoyed
good.
it. I thought it was hilarious.
I thought Arnold Schwarzenegger was hilarious, and I did like the sound in the Dungeons and Dragons. And I thought visually it was really good. It was just the story was so bad. It really
was so bad. Their DM was terrible. Terrible.
I mean, in college we used to go to the game store and we'd go. They had a $5 module box that started off at $5. By the end of the summer, they were $1 a module in it. And we'd just go in there and we'd buy a handful of these things. And every night, like someone would take one of these things and like, okay, we're going to be 15th level tonight, or we're going to be 12th level tonight. And we just run one of these things. Sometimes you get good ones, and sometimes they were just awful. And you got what you paid for.
Well, they had a bad DM.
Yeah.
It was bad. I think we should watch Love and Robots next.
I mean,
they go hand in hand.
There's 2 or 3 seasons of it.
What?
Of Love, Death, and Robots? Yeah.
I've only seen 1. Oh, we have to do it now. I loved the first season.
There's 3 seasons of it.
I loved the first season. One of my favorite episodes. Well, I liked the one where the farmers have to stop the invasion.
Mm-hmm.
And then I liked the arena. Those are my 2 favorites.
The rats one with the farmers, or the other one?
I don't know, when they're in the big mechs, if I remember right. That'll be Jonathan's favorite.
I mean, I'll rewatch Love, Death, and Robots. I love that series.
Yeah, let's watch that. That'll be next.
Just season 1?
No,
season
all of
2,
them.
season 3. I mean, that's a long time in Love, Death, and Robots.
Like, wait a minute. We have some of us have actual other things to do.
They're short episodes.
Huh?
I think they're shorter. Well, okay, fine. Season 1. They're short, just like this. They may actually be shorter.
Let's see. How many are in a season on that one?
That came out a while ago. Is that even 4K?
Yeah, it should be. Season 1 has 18 episodes. Yeah, first one was 2019. Second was season 2 was 2021 and then 2022.
Yeah, let's do this. Let's watch that. Season 1. And then we can
All
decide
right.
if we want to do the other ones. So questions. There's only 3
Yeah, the
pins.
Robot Cat one was great. Okay.
Only 3 pins. So if you guys have a question, feel free to write in. We'll pin them as we go. If there are any more, there's only 3 right now. So maybe there'll be something. This will be a short night. Been on for an hour and 15 minutes. So first one, New Lily Cinema says, I'm upgrading from 3 to 4 subs, but losing my mini DSP output for butt kicker advances. I use Dayton SA1000 to power up BKs, and that has 1 band of PQ. How should I set until I get another mini DSP? Upgrading from 3 to 4 subs, but losing my mini DSP output for butt kickers. I use... Why would he lose his... I'm confused.
He doesn't have
Probably
to lose it.
He probably has a 4-channel mini DSP.
He should just run 1 or 2 of those subs off a
Y channel, yeah.
AVR with a Y splitter if they're equidistant from the main listening position, and keep his butt kicker on the mini DSP. Without a mini DSP, I don't think the butt kicker is even worth having, personally.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
He's probably long gone.
Probably.
I mean, our viewer count is actually much lower than normal.
Well, that's what I knew. That was what's going to happen when you're like, let's just talk about Secret Level. That's what always happens. When this happened last time when we were, whatever our topic was, that was not really home theater focused, and we weren't answering questions and being technical. It was like, I don't want to listen to these guys.
Yeah.
The last time with the gaming one where I wasn't here.
Yes.
The one
it was
person
mainly because you weren't here.
The one person who games in his theater all the time wasn't here.
Well, New Lily, if you're still here, give us some more insight on how you've got it currently configured. You shouldn't need to get rid of your mini DSP though for that.
Yeah, because you
oh, sorry, Bob. Go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, you can just batch the subs together on the output of the mini DSP.
Skylight Pro Cinema says, I really want to talk to this Matthew Poe guy about localized bass he trashes. Let's talk.
I don't know the background on that. Do you guys?
Skylake, I know you're still here. Can you provide more insight? If this is talking about...
Probably near fields.
Not near fields. If he's talking about directional bass, I'd probably agree with him. I don't think it's worth it.
If we don't know the context, we can't really talk on that. You'll have to give us more information.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about directional bass. Jonathan, you did some testing on that, and you didn't think it was worthwhile.
Yeah. So with Marantz and Denon in 2023, when they released their new models, they have 4 subwoofer outs, and you can hook up what's called directional bass, and it redirects sound from the crossover from the nearest speaker to that area. Mm-hmm. So like if you had a speaker in the front left corner of my room, it would redirect the bass from the crossover point of the wide and the front, and in the rear over here would redirect from the rear and the side surround. So it makes the subwoofer play basically the frequencies that are coming from the crossover point down, those frequencies. LFE goes to all subs identically. At any rate, I did testing with myself, my father-in-law, and 2 of my buddies, and directional bass, as odd as it is, in order to make it audible, you have to turn the crossover point up very high, because 80 hertz and down, which is what's normally used, is not even localizable. Like your ears can't pick up. The wavelengths are too long. It's too big for the distance between your ears to even pick up the amplitude differences. So in order to make it work, we had to turn the crossovers up to like 150 hertz or 100 or higher even. And it actually, when I was doing blind testing with a couple of my friends, they got it wrong. It was easy to switch back and forth because I could have directional bass on with like speaker preset 1 and off with speaker preset 2. And whenever I would ask which one was directional bass, they thought the directional bass was the regular crossover with all 4 subs playing the same thing. Because the reality is the speaker, let's see if I can recall this. The speaker playing down lower, like my normal crossover point is 90 hertz. And by upping the crossover point, the direction was actually kind of lost at where the speaker would play down to, because you're up in the crossover point. We tried 150, we tried 200, we tried 250 hertz. The speaker plays those sounds better than the subwoofer. And so the directional sensation of like where the bass was in the room was actually worse when it wasn't helped or like helped by the speaker. I'm not wording that very clearly, but suffice to say, it was a bust because the people thought the directional bass was playing with just the standard setup. Like where all 4 speakers, the subwoofers are in the 4 corners, and all of them were getting the same signal. That worked better for directional location.
I've used it a bunch too, playing with it off and on because Lindorf has it and has had it for a while. And there are a few instances where I like it, and they're kind of few and far between. There's it's either one of the first or second tracks on like the Taylor Swift's Midnight 3 a.m. edition album. There's this kind of like pulsing beat at the beginning. And if you have, when I was playing with directional bass, I could get the sound to almost sound like that bass beat was panning left to right. And that was one of the few things I could actually get was somewhat localizable. And I don't know if it was just me believing that there was more than there was, because I didn't have a way to A/B it myself, because on that unit, I can't create 2 separate profiles. So I had no way to fast switch it. And it works well for some stuff. I had it set up for stereo, but it does have some big limitations. The big limitation is that you can't use one sub to fix the limitations of the other sub. So, I mean, I've got a null in one and a null in the other one. There are different frequencies, and I have a very flat frequency response just with 2 subs up there when they're running together. But when you split those out, one speaker doesn't do as good as the other, and you can't.
Well, you're losing the support benefit from the other subs helping that one sub. And if it's omnidirectional, yes, at a certain level you can localize things, but as you get lower with how sound propagates, it kind of stops mattering.
I thought I had to drop the crossover down to it was either 60 or 50 hertz or something like that to get the effect to kind of to duplicate with stereo bass or with mono bass. But it was, after having subwoofers well set up and well integrated, it's much better to have just an overall supported uniform bass response across the environment that is.
All right,
that
so I think I understand, and I thought this is where Skylake was going, but I think the question is about every channel being full range. What's your feeling on that? Like having a sub and playing every speaker playing all the way down instead of having dedicated subs.
There's so many room modes at those lower frequencies that's never going to work well. You have to have some sort of supporting mechanic to fill in with for it.
Yeah, I don't think that's very beneficial because it's not directional once it goes below that 80 or 90 hertz level anyway. So what are you gaining?
Well, my problem with it is a lot of those speaker locations are not ideal for subwoofer placement. You could actually negatively impact other subs with that sublocation for the LFE channel. I mean, I guess you could tell it not to play LFE theoretically, but you could, like you guys said, room modes would play into that, right?
Room modes are going to dominate there, and you're going to have so many issues that you can't fix it. Now, if you have a more complex system, like what's Storm One Art, where it's creating supporting frequencies with other speakers, then you have supporting frequencies or supporting speakers in those positions that could do something. But I don't have full range speakers, and most people's speakers are not going to do well below 80, below 100, below 120 in certain cases.
I will mention this, and I don't even know I still don't understand what the story is with Matthew Pose. Like, I don't know so I'm not going to comment on that. But at a couple different M waves, specifically one of the Exponas, JTR had a 7-channel RTJ 215 setup. where there was no subs. It was 7 full tower speakers, and they're literally capable of down to 15 hertz. Giant room, so room modes and stuff are kind of eliminated because like M-Wave size rooms, like just a huge room. And the speakers are not on the walls, they're kind of in the middle, like because the room's so big. That sounded fantastic. All of them were playing full range. They played movie material, they played concert material, they played music, they played everything. And
it was a first year at M-Wave.
This was Expona.
Oh yeah, I was at that room. Yeah, it was at the old convention center.
Yeah, I don't know if he's done it every year, but one of the years I was at Expo, I've been there twice. One of the years he had that set up, and it's one of the only demo sessions I've ever been in, probably the only demo session I've ever been in, where the audience started clapping at the end of the performance. Like, and there was no subs, and it had plenty of bass. And the 215 towers are literally like a captivator each, as far as truly output. Giant ported things, 15 hertz capable, I think. At any rate, I didn't think you were lacking anything in that giant room. Now, in a small room like what we have for home theaters, you're going to encounter a lot more issues.
Room modes, yeah.
Right.
You get into a big room, ideally, yeah, great.
Or outside in ground plane,
Sure.
like perfect. Yeah,
fantastic. But when you get into
small
concerts,
rooms, movie theaters, things like that, yeah.
So I don't even know where his head's at or what he was saying. I think it could work depending on the room and the setup, but it's not. I don't think it's necessary. And I don't think it's going to benefit the average home theater room. I think it's going to be worse, actually.
Well, and then the other thing that I think can go into this is to have a truly objective opinion on this. You've got to measure both ways, right? To know which one's better. I mean, you could think something's a phenomenal experience, like I'm playing the devil's advocate here on the Expona one with JTR. Theoretically, could it have been better not doing it? We'll never know. So,
well, I mean, I've been to a lot of those demos, and I don't know that it's better or worse. They're all good, but I will say this: this is not something your regular rank and file receivers can do. Like, this was a computer processing it; it was redirecting LFEs to the channels.
Storm
like,
can do it.
Yeah,
your consumer stuff cannot.
No.
So,
well, yeah, you could do it on consumer stuff if you had an individual sub channel on that, and the sub channel was tied back into the same amplification channel, and it was, like, say for example, if you really wanted to do this in a crazy, I'm going to throw a bunch of money at it, you could do the high level speaker output rel type subs at every location. Where they're pulling off the same input that the speaker's being driven by.
You could, I guess.
Are we talking about the same thing?
Yeah.
How would you redirect the LFE output back to
because if you don't have any LFE subs defined, and it's going to play it to all channels, or it's going to play it to fronts. Or
yeah,
something.
but you wouldn't want to do that.
LFE's just lost, I think, on the consumer gear if you have full
range. No, you can set full range and direct LFE to fronts on most of them if you have them set them as like extra large or whatever the preset is, but you wouldn't want to.
Maybe. So who says? Stitch says, to play devil's advocate, one of the best rooms I've been in, DL Beck had sub for each speaker.
No, he didn't. He had a set of speakers on the front, and he had 2 in the rear. Unless he's changed something, but not certainly when we went there like years ago, and I went with you, Tim. So no, he didn't.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I mean, like, in a big enough room, in certain instances, yeah, it could be a thing. But I think for most consumer stuff, I don't think you're gonna get a benefit from it.
My main issue with it is you lose control.
Yeah.
Right? You lose the ability to support. Yes, you could theoretically do it with art, but then you're introducing other potential variables like boundary interaction and cancellations, which art's great. But when you start, there's always a compromise. Regardless of what you do, nothing is free. There's always a compromise. So,
and then you're losing all the gain that you get from all the other subwoofers.
Yeah. Skylake, I think we'll agree to disagree. I think I was thinking about going down this pathway for the Mad VR Experience Center, but the more I learned about it and the more compromises that I learned you would run into, we just found that ideally having subs in the front and the rear, giving that things are omnidirectional, and as long as your speakers can play low enough, it doesn't necessarily.
Because the Sundo has those little kicker subs, right, that you can put in every location.
Yeah, but those go down to 50 hertz. So they're mainly for a mid-bass reinforcement. They're not going down all the way to infra or anything. So that is the big topic of discussion for a lot of people. You absolutely need a big room because you have to get around room modes. There's no way around it. If you're in a smaller room modes are going to dominate and it ain't going to work.
And you're not going to have the space for it. I mean, most people's theaters are smaller than, 15 by 20, even half that size. A lot of people have 12 by 14s rooms and things like that. You're not going to have enough room to put.
Then your problem when you get into those big rooms is you lose, as you just said a few minutes ago, you lose all of the gain.
Yeah, you need so much more gain in those rooms.
So, I mean, yeah, I'd be unwilling to do that for that reason.
But I think don't commercial cinemas do things like that too, or at least have smaller subs or kind of mid-base subs.
Not that maybe like Dolby Vision theaters or something, but if you think about an AMC, they're like concrete walls.
Yeah, and they're all subs up front.
They're not going to do anything. They're all up front
because they're all about efficiency on those.
Good question. Good topic. Paul A asks, anyone have experience with XY screens?
There's some people on the forums that love them. I have not seen one personally. I'm half tempted to order a sample just because.
You should.
I should.
I'm going to goad you into it.
I guess I could order a sample and put it in that frame that's sitting on the floor right there.
That's a bigger than a sample.
Well, I could just.
That's an entire screen.
Yeah, just order an entire screen. I need a projector that's bright enough to light it, though.
No, I don't think any of us really have much experience with XY screens. Pixel Pusher on AVS forums is the one you want to talk to about screen material comparison.
And in his screen material comparison, they look good. They have good acoustical measurements, the 8K and the 4K. If there's anything bad about it, I don't know the frame quality on them.
That I don't know. Srincompter says, my theater's finally getting done. When using the MadVR NV core, is there any specific HDMI cable I need to use between NV and my receiver? No. It's HDMI 2.0. It's not going to be a big deal. Ideally, a passive cable over 2 meters, and we'll say 3 meters would be a good one. If they're right next to each other, just use a 3-meter passive cable. You should be fine. Nothing special. It's on the output side that things get a little more complicated if you've got an HDMI 2.1 display. I did get those Rui Pros, but I haven't tested them yet.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, they did. And the HDMI doctor came. I haven't tested it either.
It should work remarkably. The other one's still hooked up.
Mm-hmm. And it still works. We're at 10-bit instead of 12-bit, but it still works.
Yeah, because you're 40 gigabit, not 48.
Yeah. So nothing special there, Strincompter. Just a 3-meter passive, and you'll be good to go.
I'm getting all kinds of texts from Tim and Ryan, and they're trying to argue with me that he had subs on every speaker. He didn't. I'm looking at the dang thread. He had subs on his LCR. They're sending me pictures. Yes, he had subs under his LCR, but he didn't have it on the surrounds, and he had something in the back of the room. He didn't even have enough subs in there, which I think is a fantastic room. One of the best I've ever experienced by far. But there wasn't a sub for every speaker. So that's all we're debating. And my phone's blowing up.
Oops, sorry says, what are your thoughts on the DIY SG 1099? I think they were at M-Wave a few years ago.
I like their little brother better. The 8 something, 899 or 853 or something.
Were they at M-Wave? I don't remember them being at M-Wave.
Second year, maybe in that end in the wherever the first one is in the second hallway.
I personally find the 1099s a little bright. I've heard them at 3 different rooms with 3 different sets of them, and they're a little bright for me.
They're gigantic too, aren't they?
They are huge. And they're very capable speakers, like super sensitive, super high power handling, like louder than you could ever stand, but pretty bright.
Yeah, that's the thing I thought it was. They are very large.
Now they have a little brother that's by the same designer that intentionally they designed it to not be as bright. If I recall correctly, it's been years since I've looked at this, but I heard the little brother at another room, and personally, for my taste, like the little brother a lot better. They're like, instead of 10s, I think they were 8s or something. I'm trying to remember the name of it. It was on one of the crawls up north in the I don't know, Wisconsin or something like that.
On-axis, off-axis sound power looks good. I mean, like, that's definitely EQable.
Oh, sure.
I don't have any experience with them, so I can't comment.
Yeah, I've not had a chance to hear them.
One of the locals has them. He built them, and we had them out at one of the speaker meets in the park here in Kansas City one year. They played loud. They filled up the bandstand at Swope Park, like that giant pavilion where they have actual like bands come and play.
Yeah,
we had those 1099s out there, and it filled that up easy.
Horizontal, they look okay. Vertical, not so much, but doesn't matter. Yeah, I mean, I'd be interested to hear them, but I've not actually heard them in person. They're on Audio Science Review has a thread on them.
You guys, I'll have to show you my phone messages later.
Paul A, thanks for the super chat. Donates $5. Much appreciated. Never required. He says, "What movie are you going to watch at this crawl?"
We don't know yet because we're going to be in a commercial theater, so we don't know what's coming out yet at that point, do we? Is it possible to get that information in May?
You have to look at future release schedules and see if you see anything cool that's coming out.
We don't even necessarily know if it would be in that single theater, though, either, do we? I mean, how does if it was?
I don't think we know. We just have
what
to.
What theater are you trying to go to? The big Dolby Vision one?
HDR by Barco.
The big Barco theater.
It'll probably be whatever like big studio releases out at the time.
Godzilla.
It'd be great.
Jonathan's just blocking it out now. No idea yet, Paul. Arid says, late to the party tonight, boys, but wondering your thoughts on performance of SVS cylinder subs versus box subs if the driver's the same size. I would say don't do it.
Yeah. I've heard the cylinder subs. Jonathan, you've heard them too.
Sure, a bunch of times. I don't know that I've ever heard them compared, and I wouldn't expect them to be very much different. If the driver's the exact same and the airspace is the exact same, they should sound the exact same.
They're not a very stout sub as far as construction and cabinet resonance standpoint. They're very lightweight.
Yeah, I wouldn't do
Kevin's got a couple of them now, but I think they're like the 4000s or something like that. They had, I mean, the cylinder subs, they don't make those anymore, right? That was
Kevin doesn't have those anymore.
I thought they had a beefy driver in there in one of them for sure. Like was it a PC Ultra 2 or something like that?
Cylinder, yeah, it was like a 2000 or something.
That was a nice setup. I heard that over at Doug's house. He had. How many of those did he have? 7 or 8 of them? 4 of them? I can't remember. It was
but the question is not necessarily that you're going to get a bad sound. Is would you get that over traditional box?
So the floor space thing is legit. Like the floor space, the requirement on that is much smaller.
They're small.
That's why Kevin has been using them. One of the locals here, because he doesn't have room for the big SVS box, the behind his couch in his living room, effectively. I don't have any problem with the cylinder subs. I've heard them in multiple rooms. I always think they do a good job. I guarantee you the performance shouldn't be that different. Now you'll have a little bit of difference because the driver faces forward versus the driver facing down, but all things being equal, the performance should not be that different if the same driver is involved.
Are they sealed?
They're ported traditionally.
I'm looking at the 12.
Now, if you're talking a 15-year-old SVS versus a modern SVS, the modern SVS is going to spank that old cylinder. But if you're using the same driver in the same airspace, the actual shape of the box doesn't matter. The airspace matters, and the port matters. And if they tune it the same, and if it has the same airspace, it's not going to matter.
They're rear ported down firing.
So this gentleman's saying that SVS does still make cylinder subs in the 2000, 3000, and 4000 series.
Yep, just looked them up.
I think that's cool that they still do it. So some of these guys don't like it. Skylake Cinema says he cringes when he sees them. Why do you cringe, man?
We've got friends who did the Sonotube subs too.
103.8.
I mean, I never saw one taken apart. I don't think was it effectively sonotube that SVS used, or did they use something a little bit more sturdy than that? Because sonotube is not necessarily the most reliable long term.
So given Audioholic's measurements, it actually gets 1 dB more at 20 hertz.
Yeah, I mean, they've got a decent volume for the space that they're at, and a good port length. I mean, it's not a bad design. It's just they're not very heavy.
My main reason for not liking them is you're going to have a hard time, in my opinion, reselling that if you ever decide to.
Yeah.
Personal opinion, maybe.
I think for long timers, Ryan, I think they kind of had like a nostalgia that they were the best sub in the game besides Velodyne in the early days.
But let's say if you're making a buying decision now.
So like a carpeted cylinder in the room for most people is probably not their ideal thing, but I don't think they look bad. Like they traditionally haven't looked bad, I don't think.
No.
My biggest thing again is resale value, and I don't think they have it. You're just going to be stuck with it.
There's just better options for the same price that you can find these days. Especially if you want to build them yourself.
HT5150 says, with an LS12000, would a 150 or 140 inch screen be better for a decent nits? Would the nit gain of losing those 10 inches be worth the size trade?
Acoustically transparent or not? If it's acoustically
know.
Transparent, they're both too big.
I mean, mine's the equivalent of 156 when it's.
They're not necessarily too big. I mean, he could get away with a positive gain screen. It's just going to be
right. If you have a positive gain, like
I don't know
if you had one of the higher grain
at all, and I own this projector. I have a 156 inch equivalent here, and it's acoustic transparent. It's Seymour XD, and so it's a negative gain screen, and it looks great in my opinion. It's not as bright as your Christie, but it's not $100,000 projector either.
Well, you don't. How far do you have that zoomed in on that screen?
I don't know.
It's a scope screen on that, isn't it?
So my screen is a 144 CinemaScope, which is the equivalent of a 156 when it's over zoomed. Like it'd be the equivalent of a 156.
And he says CinemaScope.
Yeah. Okay. So he's saying a 144 CinemaScope or a 150 CinemaScope.
Yep.
I mean, mine's 144. I like it. It looks great. I'm really happy with it. I'm not.
What's your seating distance?
I run my laser at 90%. My seating distance is about 11 or 12 feet.
Yours.
Oh. Well, so here's the thing. We talk about this sometimes in the past. By the numbers, you could argue that it's not bright enough, but in person, when you're looking at it, like it looks really good. I don't have any complaints. So I don't know. I wouldn't worry about it too much. I think it will work. A lot of people use bigger screens than that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Sheldon just bought an NZ500 for a 176 inch screen or something like that. 172, whatever it is. So like that's a lot less bright than the LS12000. You guys would say it wouldn't work, but he loves it. Like it works for him.
I don't think it's not necessarily that it won't work. It's that I would want more.
Yes.
But I also recognize that I'm speaking from a place of
insanity.
Yeah. So I think it would be fine. You just cannot really go after a hugely negative screen. The XD is about as far down as I would go, and I think it's 0.9.
Yeah.
Yeah, 0.85 or something, 0.9.
Yeah.
You can do micro perf if you're depending upon how sensitive you are and how far away you're sitting from it. If you're sitting far enough away. If you're sitting far enough away from micro perf, you can get away with it.
Order screen samples.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to want to look at the XD. The XD is a thicker weave, so it's more noticeable from a seating position, but that's also what's going to give it a higher gain in comparison to something like a Stewart Harmony G3 or a Seymour Screen Excellence Neo. You're going to get more gain out of that XD, but you're going to potentially notice the weave more, so you're going to have to sit further away. If you do something like a perf, you can go all the way up to a 1.3, which I think with perforated, it's going to be something like 1.22. So you can actually gain some of that luminance back. But you can introduce. I don't think you're going to have a problem with it on the LS
Not
12,000.
those brightness levels. I don't think you'll get close.
You can have some off-axis issues depending on what you're trying to get for seating positions, how wide the room is, that kind of stuff. You probably won't. Most rooms aren't wide enough to have that problem. But the compromise there with that particular material and going perf is cost. The ST130 from Stewart is not cheap, but it's very good for what it does.
Ballpark it. What would that cost? One ST130 at 150 inch, 140 inch. Yeah.
You're probably in the ballpark of an MSRP of $5,000 would be my guess. The perf is expensive. Like
does
that
Silver
perf
Ticket
process
make a
is
perf?
not cheap and it's time intensive. What?
Does Silver Ticket sell a positive gain micro perf? I can't remember if they do or not.
I don't know.
I know you can get it from, so you like there's other companies out there where you can buy screen material. So like you can buy a screen frame from like Silver Ticket on Amazon or wherever, and you can call up Sievertson and you can have them just cut you a screen that you drop right back into that. And they have a decent screen. That's what I've got behind me is a Sievertson. They're 1.3. It's not really 1.3. It's like 1.1, but it's a positive gain screen that has very low sparkle. And they sell those in perf also, and you can get that made for an existing frame. They'll make that and charge you not too much, and you can rescreen an existing frame as another option to keep costs down if you're worried about that. And as long as you've got a decent seating distance and you're not running excessively high brightness like on an LS12000, you shouldn't have the kind of issues that you get on once you increase your brightness a lot, though, you'll start seeing a lot of screen door effect. You'll start seeing moire. You'll start seeing those perfs, and it's not going to be a pleasant experience.
He also asked, would you recommend going smaller screen to prioritize nits? I don't think that 10-inch drop is necessarily going to warrant enough. I would want the immersion.
Yeah. The other issue when you go to a smaller screen is you're going to have to pull if you're doing AT and putting your in-wall speakers or behind the screen speakers behind it, you have to pull your speakers closer together.
Yeah.
So you might have some acoustical compromise.
You're also going to potentially, because it's a perf, you're going to have to theoretically put the speakers further away from the screen.
Depending on which one, yeah.
They have more headroom potentially because you lose some high frequency.
You do.
With perf screens.
Well, you technically lose them with woven too, but not as much.
But yeah, make sure just order screen samples. It's pretty easy to get them from a lot of these companies. Just call them up or can order them online. And then when you use screen materials, if you're going to hold them over your existing one, use a black backer behind it. Otherwise, you're just going to reflect everything through the screen, or through existing screen back through the screen material. So they're all going to look, the ones that would give you less gain will probably look brighter because they're letting more light through, but you're reflecting more light back through them. So it's deceptive on how they're actually going to look if you don't put a backer on them when you evaluate them.
Good question.
Yeah, Ryan, those are great screens. I like them a lot.
Last question. Paul A asks, you guys have any thoughts on PSA speakers, not subs?
Not heard them.
That's one I haven't really heard much of either. I mean, I know the brand, it's very popular on the forums, but I don't know that I've heard the speakers yet.
I don't think PSA is all that expensive.
No.
In comparison to other
It's
parties. I don't have much experience with them, though, so I can't really comment.
Yeah.
I know some people that are in this group have extensive experience with them and like them a lot.
I'm not even sure I've heard them. I'm trying to think if I've even heard them. I don't think I have.
I haven't. So, similar design. I mean, they're a Horn MTM.
Yeah. Similar design to JTR.
Similar design to JTR.
They look very similar.
Tower version, kind of a smaller bookshelf. Well, not bookshelf, but non-floor standing version. Meant to be mounted somewhere. And they put solid drivers in their subs. I would assume they probably put solid drivers and decent boxes in their other ones too. I just haven't had a chance to see one hands-on.
That's it. People aren't very talkative tonight. It's probably because it's daylight savings time this weekend.
Is it really?
It is.
Oh, I didn't know that.
At least that's what my wife says. I wouldn't know. I'd still be an hour off come Sunday.
I figured that out when my alarm goes off on my phone and just it's already changed time for me.
Isn't that nice that it changes for us and we don't even think about it?
Yep.
I swear, without my wife, I'd be dead in some gutter somewhere, obviously on the wrong time.
You're not doing the old cable box time change free pay-per-view thing?
The what?
Yeah, back in the day when you had an actual physical cable box, if you were like flipping through the pay-per-view channels right at the time change, you could flip onto a pay-per-view movie right at the time change.
Did not know this.
Not that you can do that anymore.
Did not know that. Jonathan knew that. Probably did it all the time to watch Godzilla.
This is that time where I go, another 6 months where my clock is wrong?
So we're going to watch Love and Death and Robots.
Mm-hmm.
What do we want to talk about next week? Is there anything pertinent? You had a couple topics, Jonathan, that you texted, and I liked the second one. I don't remember what it was, though.
Well, one of the guests had asked about, or one of the viewers had asked about base sealed versus ported, movies versus music, like which sub for which, all that kind of stuff. Is there any truth to the conversations online where people are saying get sealed for music and ported for movies and all that kind of stuff? I feel like we've kind of talked, over the last 2 or 3 years, so I feel like we've hit that a lot of times, but maybe not cleanly in a concise episode.
Ken actually has a good one. Speaking of wives, how about an episode on something we all deal with, the wife approval factor? I mean, we haven't really talked about that a whole lot.
I wonder if us talking about what our wife's approval factor would be compared to what our wives talking about their wife approval factor would be. Like if it wasn't us and it was just our wives having the conversation for the session, it might go a little differently.
I should get my wife to talk about her experiences with me and speakers in the living room.
Oh. I remember when you had the black swans up in the living room.
Oh man, I'll ask her if she'll do it next week. She might. I don't know.
They sounded good, but they're aesthetically not
unpleasing.
They're a black swan.
Oh yeah, love. They're the same size as the speakers that were here before.
Which one? Because you've had a bunch of different pairs of speakers up there.
The
Perlistons up there before that? You have the F200s?
The F200s. And they're like 5 times the size of the F200s.
Twice as wide, twice as deep. Oh, I guess the horn sticks out a
lot
more.
Wider than twice.
They're well wider, yeah.
Look what Tim says here, and it's true. I watched it happen at M-Wave.
I did, yeah, I remember that.
So the second year at M-Wave, or I guess this last year at M-Wave, did they have one sub per speaker?
I think so. And if not even more.
In the JTR room. And there's an insane amount of subs in that room. Was there like one sub per channel of speaker?
We have to go back and look at the sheets, but it was pretty close to that, if not, and even more in the front, I think.
It was a lot.
On the stitched comment there below, I'm gonna just give you a little bit of background on it. Kind of made me laugh because he was gonna just do clips in his theater. That was his original intent. He had bought some new towers, some reference towers, and while he was at M-Wave, they were listening to JTR, and his wife said, "These sound a lot better than what you have. Would you like to get these instead?" And he's like, "Oh, okay."
Wives are brutal, man. I actually get that quite a bit when I'm doing demos for customers, and I'll get the wives say, my ears don't hurt when I listen to these." Oh, no
what you get when you don't have distortion.
No filter. Just push them down. Bring them back down to earth. Anyway, I'll see if my wife will do it. She'll probably tell me no, but I'll ask. So she can roast me. So I guess we'll do the wife approval factor. Does that work?
That sounds fun.
Okay. So we got Love, Death, and Robots, wife approval factor. That'll be a fun one. They're all fun, but this will be different. Anything else?
That's it.
I don't think so.
Oh. M-Wave's going to happen in 26.
Awesome.
Got the primary sponsor, so it's going to happen. It'll probably happen in the spring.
Cool.
So Yep, that was big news.
Any
So that's
updates on
going to
the
happen just
crawl
nothing
that you
this
guys
year.
need to
So it'll happen in
make
26.
for him?
Hmm?
Any updates on the crawl you need to make? You guys good there?
I don't think so. Not that I'm aware of. Jonathan, anything from you?
Nothing.
Okay.
Let's not drag it on. Let's call it a night.
Let's call it a night. Thought it was going to be short. It's not going to. We will see you next Friday. What is happening?
Music to play out to. It's an
I thought Spotify turned on or something. Anyway, I will see you guys next week. Jonathan, Bob, thanks for joining me as always. I guess next Friday or Saturday, we got to figure out our schedules. But have a good night, everyone. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you guys